Welcome to the Event Marketing Seminar, a 7-minute webinar by Snowball. In this seminar series, you get the tip of the iceberg on free to post event marketing practical tips, shared by event marketers for event marketers. I'm your host, Rachel Stefani. Let's break the ice. Today I'm here with Ali Akhtar, and we're going to talk about something really special about a new channel that's being leveraged to market events. We're all trying to figure out different strategies, different channels, different ways that we can reach our audiences and increase our events attendance. And I was really happy to hear about this particular channel, podcasting. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this particular channel?
Very happy to be here. As a marketer over many years, I have tapped into many channels, and where we are standing now, it's more intended towards the digital side. And by digital, you can go through Google, retargeting, you can talk through discovery ads, new algorithms, social channels. But in that one thing, what particularly stood out was podcast communications. When the conversations are going off through the industry in a particular channel, it could be Spotify, it could be any streaming channels. Very slightly, very effectively, you're plugging your brand. And then everyone wants to then be part of it, right? They want to obviously hear from the industry speakers on site. They want to see what are the new product demonstration, what are the innovations happening, what are the sustainability conversations. When you indirectly have a conversation with big association, with industry leaders who are the decision maker, then it is just an effective way of marketing, in my opinion. And I think this will keep ramping up from a small scale to a big scale. This is an indirect way of tapping into the content, having that always on strategy. Few years back, it used to be done at those big podcasts or at a radio level. Now you can actually have the conversation at an industry level, at a much smaller level as well.
And I love the point that you mentioned earlier about being always on, because everybody talks about being close to their audience after the event even is over.
It's classic example of when before something comes up, a brand is launched, an event is being done, or whatever is happening, we ramp up our communication, right? We completely tap all the channels and we're talking about it, we're
Yeah,
preaching about it, and once it is done, you close the lid and you forget about it. Disappear,
disappear.
which is
Yeah.
bad because a brand, whether it is B2B, B2C, in particularly for events, your next edition is coming up, so you should not have gap between the two, and there's a lot happening between two editions. So when you keep talking about this through podcasts or through any channel for that matter, you are just resonating with your audience better. You're just talking with them and you're connecting those pain points, and maybe then after a few conversation with industry, and when they are hearing, they said, yes, this is the place to be in. And then your on your face marketing is more effective because you have already laid that foundation earlier, right?
So, which demographic audience profile are you trying to reach with the podcasting?
Would be someone from mid 20s to your 50s or mid 40s, right? Someone who is really in the peak, in the middle of their careers, right? And to be very frank, we are also intentionally very focused on the new generation of leaders because they are the one to shape our industry, right? The people who are already there, kudos to them. It's the future which will shape the generations ahead.
And that's a great way to bring them in and have them be aware about what you're doing and bring them to your event. So, in terms of effectiveness of this strategy or this channel, specifically podcasting, what kind of metrics do you have in place?
One of the first ones are your impression rates and how many people have listened. Usually, wherever you're hosting it, those people have certain metrics, right? You do a kind of a very strategic decisions, like a funnel. And then based on that, you have your certain KPIs, which is measuring your success. But even if the success is not just by who has listened and what they have listened and what is the number of impression, it's the conversation which leads to another conversation. So that's also an indirect success, because if someone else picks up this conversation and comes to us saying, hey, we want to be part of it, we want to attend, speak, we want to exhibit, we want to sponsor, that means we are hitting the right audience, right? So that itself is like a testament to many things.
So, you mentioned that you also place ads for your events, particularly on podcasts? Like, how does that work, and what kind of advertisement or strategy do you use in placing these, or the content that you use?
Podcast ads are not very different than radio ads. The only difference is radio ads, obviously, the broadcaster will tell you when and the frequency, and you can do it in the morning show, afternoon show, evening show, depending on what kind of budget and what you have collectively decided. In podcast commercial, the good thing is you just have that ad running. It's not based in terms of live traffic like the radio happens. Your money value will not fluctuate. Podcast commercials are recorded. You're very crisp, a tagline, a short phrase. It is strategically put in places where the real conversations are happening. Some industry conversation is happening, and this is strategically put across that commercial. So then, for a person who is listening, and then this coming up, is very timely placed, right? I think in future podcast commercials would be very much more viable because your millennials and Gen Z are more streaming. They're always on Spotify, they're listening to their music or their podcast. And now each of these big commercial radio channels are also having their own platform. They have your own podcast. So there are a lot of revenue streams for them. At the same time, it gives a very much flexibility for us from this side rather than constrained to the timings.
Last question for you. I'm curious, in terms of conversion, like, how do you track conversions?
Conversions may happen, so there you could put in the website, and then the website could be tracked with a UTM, right? Or you could create a special promo code which during the conversation or in the commercial you could say, when you're registering, use whatever, a promo code, and that promo code, when someone uses, they get a certain level of discount. And so it's a double whammy. They get a discount, and we come to know that, oh, this conversion is happening because of this channel. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of other channels are getting very expensive. Like radios are getting expensive. Your digital ads are getting at times very expensive. Your LinkedIn platform itself, which is very important B2B, your outdoor advertising is getting expensive. So sometimes a less expensive but more effective way could be these new streaming platforms, the podcast commercials, guerrilla marketing, few more places to go.
Thank you so much, Adi, for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for listening.